So here I want to talk about the difference between what's called quoted speech and reported speech, and integrated quotation and incorporated quotation. Now, quoted speech is also called direct quotation, but I'm using it specifically to include a signal phrase. So, quoted speech is a quotation signal phrase. Now, signal phrases can be many things. They're usually a subject and a verb, like he said. Okay, and let's give him a name. Let's say Johnny said. And what did he say? By the way, you always begin your quotation with a capital. We're going to win the competition. Okay. So here in this case, again, I'm going to quote it. Sorry. Johnny said is the signal phrase. You can also have other expressions like according to Johnny, because it behaves the way a signal phrase does. And the way in which a signal phrase behaves is that it can go anywhere. It can go before the quotation, it can go in the middle of the quotation, it can go after the quotation. So let me go ahead and copy this line and paste it a couple times. What? Okay. Sorry. I must have hit paste. All right, so I'm going to paste this a couple times, and then I'm going to change it around. So in this case, I'm going to put the signal phrase at the end, and I would say Johnny, and let me just say he said instead of Johnny, just to show you that if you put it at the end, you don't capitalize it. Okay, Johnny's always going to be capitalized, and then we can also put it in the middle. I'm going to use he again and say we, Johnny. Oh, sorry, he said. And then I'm continuing the quotation. So this word "are" here is not capitalized because the quotation is is a single sentence. And I capitalize the beginning of it, but I'm not going to capitalize it when it's been broken up. Okay. So I can take these three and copy and paste them again. I'll remove that middle line and let me move this one away and show you some other variations. I can say this. I can say said Johnny, and if I gotta do the line spacing correctly, I can say said Johnny, we're gonna win. We're gonna win, and I can go ahead and say said Johnny. Again, it's not capitalized. Said Johnny is not a sentence. It's a continuation with a quotation. Notice where the commas are. Commas are always around the signal phrase. And if it's in the middle, like here, it's going to have comma in front of it and a comma behind it. Okay, so anyway, this is what I often say are the 6 variations of quoted speech. You have one here. Let me put 2 here. 3 here. Some people are uncomfortable starting with the verb, but I would tell you it happens all the time. What I really like about this, knowing that we have 6 ways to quote something with a signal phrase, is that's a lot of variation. So you need to, as a good writer, try not to repeat. And so that is the same with your sentence patterns. So you're going to be using quotation a lot. Don't do it the same every time. This next assignment, I'm asking you to write a autobiography, but you have to include at least two other people that you quote. And when you quote them again, you do the same sort of thing. Now, I have other choices as well. I don't have to have a signal phrase. If the reader knows who it is that's speaking, that would be just fine. If I've already said that Johnny said a bunch of things and then I have a quotation, I think as a reader I would assume that it's Johnny who said it. So that we would call, we'll go ahead and change this order. I'll put this up here. And we call that integrated quotation or incorporated quotation. So if I just had the line right here, like this, that would be a integrated quotation because there's no signal phrase. I could also just use a piece of it. I could say, I was excited because Johnny made me confident that we would, quote, win the competition. Now, if I did that, let me put some more space there. Let me go ahead and underline these. Let me just underline this line here. This line here, just for make this a little more visual for you. If I had these in my essay, I've made an attribution to Johnny, but I don't have really a signal phrase. I'm just quoting that we were going to win the competition, and by putting it in quotation, I think the reader would assume that that's something that Johnny had said. Now, reported speech, we don't use any quotations with. McPhee refers to this, and McPhee says sometimes you can't remember exactly the word for word what somebody said, and it's a little bit of, academic dishonesty if you're quoting from memory, and because we're not really good at remembering exactly word for word what people said. So McPhee called this indirect discourse. And that is, reported speech is indicating what someone said without quotation marks. That's true. All right, so in this case, I would say, and let me use a word other than said. Johnny implied that, quote, we are going to win competition. Now, if I did that, sorry, that would be, sorry, I was doing integrated quotation. Johnny implied that we would win the competition. I'm not quoting here, and so that would be reported speech. Let me underline this. All right, so these are three ways to sort of indicate what someone has said: quoted speech, integrated quotation, reported speech. Reported speech also has just been, considered a paraphrase, putting it in your own words. Although I use the word "win" in competition, it's just not. There's not very many of them, so it's not really like I'm plagiarizing. Because plagiarism is 4 content words or more, consecutive, ignoring any other little grammar words like "in" and "the" and that sort of thing. So these are ways in which you can show what the people you are using to describe you in your autobiography, and I would like you to not do it the same way every time. I'd like every instance to be different. Okay. Um, and we need to work on that variation always as writers to improve our craft. Now, I would say one other thing about this is there's no citation, no citation is necessary when you are quoting someone who you interviewed, because MLA considers you the source of it. You're reporting it to the world in your essay. Um, so there's no works cited list, or there's no, at least you might have a works cited list, but if you're referring to what someone said to you, you are the source, and your paper is the source. So you don't need to include them, in a conversation or in an interview on that sort of thing. You could do an email, cite an email, an MLA, but if it was to a personal email to you, nobody else has access to that. So again, your paper is where it's in a sense being published to the world. So no citation is necessary. I can't remember if APA does. We'll get to that later. Um, all right, for an interview or conversation. All right. I hope that makes sense to you, and take care.